With over 50,000 folks and over 21,000 companies that will be here to help shape the future of the energy industry. And it is, and it will be, a strong future because the world needs energy. The billions of people who still live in poverty, who dream of futures of opportunity and prosperity, need affordable and reliable energy. And that's why the International Energy Agency projects growing global demand for oil and gas-based energy through at least the year 2040 to fuel that growth, in part, in the developing world. And of course, with the depletion of older conventional reserves, that means that new sources of oil and gas must be found and developed. And they must be developed with an increasing sensitivity to the imperative to reduce the environmental impact of industry and of the energy sector in particular. And that's something that Alberta has a lot of expertise at. With massive investments in technology, reducing carbon intensity, and cutting the environmental impact of energy production. Thanks to tens of billions of dollars of research funded by the industry in this country. In the last decade alone, we've reduced the greenhouse gas intensity of oil and gas in this province by 21%, and many in the industry project that with additional technology, we'll see a further decline of upwards of 20% in GHG intensity in this province by 2030. And there are many projections that, or many estimates that Alberta heavy crude now has a lower carbon footprint than heavy crude produced in most parts of the world. So a culture of constant innovation that you will see on display with so many of the exhibitors at the GPS. So part of the tremendous technical expertise that we have developed here in Alberta will be on display, driven by our culture of innovation. And the GPS is an opportunity for many of those innovators to show the world cutting-edge technology that reduces costs, improves productivity, accesses reserves not long ago thought unrecoverable with a shrinking environmental footprint. Now, in this province, at least, we've been through some challenging years recently. And even though we continue to be proud leaders in global energy, due to a lack of regulatory certainty and market access, together with certain policies and such as higher taxes, we've seen the shift of capital from Alberta's energy sector to the sector in many other parts of the world. Often jurisdictions that do not have the same level of regulatory and labor standards that we have in Canada. But all of that is about to change. Our government was elected on a mandate to get Alberta back to work, in part by restoring investor confidence in our energy industry, while at the same time encouraging and promoting diversification. So the message I want you to hear from me today is that Alberta is open for business. That's not just a slogan, it is a reality driven by policy choices, such as the job creation tax cut, through which we will be reducing the tax burden on Alberta job creators by 1/3, beginning with a 1-point reduction in the general business tax rate on July the 1st, another 1-point reduction on New Year's Day, and by January 1st of 2022, the business tax rate in Alberta will be 45% lower than the next highest rate in Canada, and our combined federal-provincial corporate tax rate in Alberta will be lower than that of 44 of the 50 United States. So we are getting in the game, and just in the last 48 hours, I met with people attending this conference who have either committed to or are seriously considering multi-billion-dollar investments, who have said that those decisions and those final investment decisions are being facilitated by Alberta becoming competitive in terms of its fiscal burden. Secondly, we recently repealed the retail carbon tax, which is a saving of $1.4 billion, for a lifting of a deadweight cost on our economy that I and many do not believe was making any positive effect in terms of emissions. At the same time, we will bring forward legislation in the fall for a levy on major industrial emissions, the TIER Fund, to support research and development in constant environmental improvement in the industry. Thirdly, We will be introducing next week the Royalty Guarantee Act. We know that one thing that causes investors to lose faith in a jurisdiction is uncertainty on regulations and on royalties. And I have to admit that happened in Alberta in recent years, and that's why we will be bringing forward legislation to provide long-term certainty that the royalty structure in place when a project is permitted will remain in place. We have also introduced the Red Tape Reduction Act and are leading a process to reduce by 1/3 the number of regulatory requirements imposed by the Alberta government. We've actually appointed a minister for red tape reduction, and he has a challenge function across the entire government. In this, we are replicating the successful model of our cousins next door in British Columbia, who aimed to reduce the regulatory burden by 1/3, and they managed to do it by 41%. We'll also be bringing in legislated timelines for project approvals at the Alberta Energy Regulator and other regulatory bodies, because we recognize that Alberta has not just struggled with a price differential in recent years, but also a regulatory differential. And we know, for example, that a lot of the capital here has fled to Texas, where conventional wells can get approved in a few weeks, where it is taking sometimes over a year. That will no longer be the case. And if you have ideas about how we can have smarter outcome-based regs rather than slower process-based regs, please help to inform our red tape reduction initiative. Next, I can confirm that our new government will continue with programs to encourage capital investment in areas to diversify our energy sector, including the Petrochemical Diversification Program, which is a royalty tax credit model to incentivize investment. I want to thank the Petroleum Industries Company of the Kuwait Petroleum Corporation and President Mutlaq Al-Azmi for being here today. They, of course, have made a very important partnership with Pembina Pipelines for a multi-billion-dollar investment in a polypropylene plant in Sherwood Park. And we invite other investments like that. In fact, we hope to incentivize them through recent amendments we've introduced to the Municipal Government Act to allow municipalities to offer tax holidays for up to 15 years to compete with jurisdictions like Texas and Louisiana who do the same thing. We also understand that the natural gas industry in particular needs a focus in Alberta. It's been going through challenging times, and we all know why. And that's why we've created a particular focus on that with the appointment of a deputy minister and an assistant deputy minister charged with implementing the recommendations of the recent Quisley panel on the future of the Alberta natural gas industry. And finally, there are other ways in which we are going to provide concierge service to those investing in job-creating economic activity in Alberta. For example, I can tell you today that we will be using our agreement with the federal government through the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program to offer open work permits to folks coming here from abroad to help set up companies and make major investments in Alberta with simplified fast-track access to those work permits to help them help us grow this economy and create jobs. Now, having said all of that, we know that we continue to have some strategic challenges here around market access and regulatory uncertainty at the federal level. That's why I would like to thank 5 of my colleagues as premiers of provinces and territories for having co-signed a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau yesterday, asking that he respect the amendments made to Bill C-69, the Environmental Assessment Act, and Bill C-48, which we believe is a prejudicial attack on a product produced only in this province. And later today, I'll be flying, in fact, immediately after this speech, to Quebec to speak to global investors in Montreal, then meet with Premier Legault, and then First Ministers in Atlantic Canada on these and other issues, as we, as Albertans, try to create a national coalition for prosperity, for jobs, and that respects provincial jurisdiction. And so, friends, I want you to leave this morning with a sense of optimism, of renewed energy. This is a resilient city and province, and yours is a resilient and innovative industry. That innovation is no more evident than here in Alberta. And so we hope you find yourselves at home, and I can assure you that you have partners in government that want to be partners in prosperity, not just here, but all across Canada. So let's get her done. Thank you very much.